Visualize a room entirely built with amber and gold, made from it, not decorated with it. 6 tons of honey-colored glowing panels that appeared to absorb sunlight. A treasure so spectacular that it was known as the 8th wonder of the world by those who saw it. It was more valuable than whole kingdoms. Then it disappeared in 1945. This treasure, currently valued at over $500 million, has been the primary objective of treasure seekers worldwide for nearly 80 years. Others have lost their lives in pursuit of it. Others claim to have located it, only to find shut passageways and empty chambers. The truth has been buried by governments. Its secrets were carried to their graves by war criminals. This is how the Amber Room turned out to be, the biggest heist of art in history. Generations have been driven by this obsession, and a mystery that gets deeper with each new piece of information. Welcome to the adventure for the most valuable lost treasure in the world. The best craftspeople in Prussia spent a decade working on this impossibility. They carved complex designs into panels of amber. Precious stones, including diamonds, rubies, and emeralds, were inlaid. The amber's brilliance would be multiplied indefinitely by the use of mirrors backed with gold leaf. 6 tons of meticulously produced amber coated every surface and inch of wall space. When it was finished, guests compared entering the room to walking into honey that had solidified, like though you were within a sunset. As candlelight danced across their surfaces, the panels appeared to come to life and change color. It was a live piece of art, not just a room. However, this is where the journey takes its first turn. Frederick William I, Frederick's son, provided the entire room away to Russian Tsar Peter the Great in 1716 as a diplomatic gift. 10 years in the planning, a whole room was disassembled, packed into containers, and transported to Russia to cement an alliance between empires. After arriving in St. Petersburg, the Amber Room was put inside the winter house. Peter's daughter, Empress Elizabeth, however, was the one who really recognized its possibilities. She arranged for the apartment to be relocated to the Catherine Palace, which is located outside of St. Petersburg, in 1755. She enlarged it, adding more gold, mirrors, and amber panels. The space expanded to about 590 square feet, or about the size of a typical apartment. The Amber Room was the jewel in the crown of Imperial Russia for the next 186 years. To catch a glimpse of it, diplomats from other countries would fly hundreds of kilometers. Voltaire, a philosopher, wrote about it. Painters attempted, but were unable, to capture its beauty. It was preserved as a representation of Russian cultural history by Soviet curators and outlasted the Russian Revolution and the fall of the Tsars. It appeared to be unbreakable, eternal. Then Hitler arrived, June 22, 1941. 3 million German soldiers crossed into Soviet territory in Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in human history. Hitler didn't just want to conquer the Soviet Union militarily, he wanted to strip it of its culture, its history, its soul. So alongside the Wehrmacht soldiers came special units, art experts, curators, and specialists whose job wasn't to fight, but to steal. They had lists, detailed inventories of every museum, every palace, every treasure worth taking. And at the very top of that list was the Amber Room. As German forces pushed toward Leningrad, modern-day St. Petersburg, Soviet curators at Catherine Palace faced a desperate choice. They'd already evacuated thousands of artworks, packing them onto trains headed east. But the Amber Room was different. Amber is organic. It's fragile. It cracks in cold weather, becomes brittle with age, and shatters under stress. The panels had been mounted on the walls for nearly 200 years. Trying to remove them risked destroying them entirely. They'd crumble to dust before they could be saved. So the curators made a gamble. They decided to hide in the room instead of evacuating it. Workers covered the amber panels with thin wallpaper, hoping that in the chaos of war, German soldiers would overlook it. Maybe they'd think it was just another ballroom with painted walls. It was a desperate plan, and it failed completely. September 17, 1941. German Army Group North captured Catherine Palace. Within hours, art specialists under the command of Erich Koch, one of Hitler's most brutal governors, had found the Amber Room. The wallpaper was torn away, and what they saw made them move with shocking efficiency. In just 36 hours, German specialists dismantled the entire room. Every panel, every mirror, every piece of amber carefully removed and packed into 27 numbered crates. They worked so quickly, so professionally, that some historians believe they'd been planning this operation for months, maybe years, before the invasion even began. The crates were loaded onto a train. Destination: Königsberg, East Prussia, modern-day Kaliningrad, Russia, but then the easternmost city of Nazi Germany. The Amber Room had been stolen. For 3 years, from 1941 to 1944, the Amber Room was on public display in Königsberg Castle. Nazi officials gave tours. They took photographs. They showed it off as proof of German cultural superiority, conveniently ignoring that it was Prussian originally and Russian for the past 2 centuries. Multiple witnesses saw it during this period. Their testimonies would later become crucial because they proved beyond doubt that the Amber Room made it to Königsberg and was intact as late as 1944. But by August 1944, the war had turned against Germany. Allied bombers were destroying German cities night after night. The Red Army was pushing westward, bent on revenge, and Königsberg, stuck out on the Baltic coast, was directly in their path. On August 26, 1944, British bombers attacked Königsberg. Fires broke out across the city. The castle was damaged, and this is where our mystery truly begins, because after this point, no one saw the Amber Room again. Alfred Rode was the last official curator of the Amber Room in Königsberg. He was an art historian, a careful man who documented Nazi art thefts throughout the war. In April 1945, as Soviet forces surrounded the city, Rode told several people that he'd been ordered to secure the Amber Room. What that meant, he never clarified. 2 weeks later, both Rode and his wife died of typhus, or so the official report said. But they died just days before Soviet investigators arrived to question him about the Amber Room's location. Convenient timing? Or something darker? When the Soviets finally captured Königsberg Castle, they searched every room, every cellar, every hidden chamber. They sifted through bomb debris. They interviewed the few remaining Germans who hadn't fled, and they found nothing. No amber panels, no mirrors, no gold leaf, no fragments, nothing. If the Amber Room had burned in the August 1944 bombing, there should have been evidence. Amber burns. It melts, it leaves residue, distinctive traces. But Soviet investigators found none. The room hadn't burned, it had simply disappeared. So if it wasn't destroyed, where did it go? For nearly 80 years, treasure hunters, historians, and governments have chased one theory after another. Let's examine the main possibilities. Theory 1. The underground bunkers. Königsberg Castle sits atop a network of medieval tunnels and Nazi-era bunkers. These passages run for miles beneath the old city, most of them sealed or collapsed. In 1967, 2 German researchers claimed they'd used ground-penetrating radar to locate a sealed chamber beneath the castle ruins, a chamber exactly the right size to hold 27 crates. They petitioned Soviet authorities for permission to excavate. The Soviets refused. When the researchers tried to investigate on their own, they were arrested and deported. The chamber, if it exists, remains sealed to this day. Why would the Soviets, who desperately wanted to find the Amber Room, block an investigation, unless they'd found something they wanted to keep secret? Theory 2. The sunken ship. In January 1945, as the Red Army closed in, hundreds of thousands of German civilians and soldiers fled Königsberg by sea. Ships left the harbor daily, packed with refugees, wounded soldiers, and possibly looted treasures. On January 30th, the Wilhelm Gustloff, a German military transport ship, was torpedoed by a Soviet submarine. Over 9,000 people died, the worst maritime disaster in history, far deadlier than the Titanic. The ship sank in just 45 minutes in freezing Baltic waters. Some historians believe the Amber Room was aboard the Gustloff. The ship was carrying high-ranking Nazi officials and their possessions. It makes sense that they'd try to evacuate valuable art along with people. If this theory is true, the Amber Room rests in 150 feet of Baltic seawater, slowly disintegrating in the cold and darkness. Theory 3. The Mine. Throughout World War II, the Nazis hid stolen art in mines and tunnels across occupied Europe. Salt mines, copper mines, abandoned railway tunnels, anywhere underground where treasures would be protected from bombing. Hundreds of tons of stolen art were recovered from these locations after the war. In 1945, there were at least 40 active mines within 100 miles of Königsberg. Any one of them could have been used to hide the Amber Room. But which one? And are they still accessible, or did the Nazis collapse the tunnels to keep their secrets buried forever? In 2016, treasure hunters in Poland claimed they'd found a Nazi gold train buried in a mountain tunnel. Ground-penetrating radar showed what looked like a train-sized object underground. The Polish government took the claim seriously enough to send investigation teams. They found nothing, just natural rock formations and wishful thinking. Theory 4. The deliberate cover-up. And then there's the darkest theory. What if the Amber Room was found decades ago and someone decided to keep it secret? Think about it. If you were a Soviet general in 1945 and you found 6 tons of amber and gold in a bunker, would you report it? Or would you quietly divide it among your officers and ship it home? If you were a modern construction worker in Kaliningrad and you broke through a wall into a sealed chamber filled with priceless artifacts, would you call the authorities? Or would you sell pieces on the black market for generational wealth? The amber mosaic discovered in 1997 proves that at least some pieces of the Amber Room survived and entered private hands. If one piece escaped, why not more? Why not all of it? The Amber Room has a body count. Georg Stein was a former German soldier who claimed to know where the Amber Room was hidden. In 1987, he contacted a lawyer and said he was ready to reveal its location. He died in a car crash the very next day before he could share what he knew. The crash was ruled an accident. Maybe it was. Yuri Gusev was a Russian intelligence officer investigating the Amber Room's disappearance. He'd apparently made a breakthrough in 1992 and traveled to Bavaria, Germany, to follow a lead. He was found dead in a forest, murdered. The case was never solved. Then there's the Rode couple, the last curators in Königsberg who died of typhus just before Soviet interrogation. Typhus or something more sinister? Are these deaths connected? Is there a conspiracy to keep the Amber Room hidden? Or is this just the confirmation bias of treasure hunters seeing patterns where none exist? But here's what we know for certain. In 1997, German police raided a lawyer's office in Bremen and found a single amber mosaic from the original Amber Room. It was 16 inches tall, inlaid with jade and onyx, and unmistakably authentic. The lawyer's father had been a Nazi lieutenant stationed in Königsberg. He claimed his father was given the piece as a souvenir before evacuating the city in 1945. That single piece proved something crucial. The Amber Room did not entirely burn. Parts of it survived beyond 1945, which means somewhere, in some form, more pieces might still exist. In 1979, the Soviet government made a decision. If they couldn't find the original Amber Room, they would recreate it. For 24 years, 40 Russian master craftsmen worked to rebuild Paradise. They studied the few surviving photographs. They examined the single recovered mosaic. They used traditional 18th century techniques to carve, polish, and fit 6 tons of new amber, piece by painstaking piece. The project cost $11 million, roughly $20 million in today's money. It required amber sourced from the same Baltic regions as the original. Every panel had to be perfect. On May 31, 2003, on the 300th anniversary of St. Petersburg's founding, the recreated Amber Room was unveiled at Catherine Palace. Today, you can visit it. You can stand where Russian czars once stood, surrounded by glowing amber walls. But it's not the same. The original held 2.5 centuries of history. It was touched by Catherine the Great herself. It survived revolutions and empires. That history cannot be recreated with new amber, no matter how skilled the craftsman. So the search continues. Every few years, someone claims to have found it. Ground-penetrating radar detects anomalies. Metal detectors ping in Polish forests. Deathbed confessions surface, pointing to sealed bunkers and hidden chambers. In 2017, treasure hunters investigated a German villa, certain they'd found a secret Nazi vault beneath it. They found wine bottles. In 2020, divers explored a shipwreck in the Baltic, convinced it was carrying the Amber Room. They found rusted engine parts. In 2023, researchers using modern LiDAR technology scanned beneath Königsberg castle ruins, detecting what might be sealed chambers. Permission to excavate was denied by Russian authorities. Again, maybe the Amber Room is gone forever, destroyed in fires we haven't found evidence of, dissolved by seawater, or crumbled to amber dust in a forgotten mineshaft. Or maybe it's exactly where someone left it 80 years ago, behind a bricked-up wall, beneath feet of concrete, sealed in a bunker that hasn't seen daylight since 1945. 6 tons of fossilized sunlight, the 8th wonder of the world, worth $500 million, lost to history, or just hidden. One of the most unanswered mysteries in history is still the Amber Room. And maybe that's appropriate. Legends are more valuable than findings when it comes to some valuables. As a tribute to human fascination, the timeless power of beauty, and our resolve to solve the secrets of the past, the search itself has become a part of the narrative. The Amber Room is waiting somewhere, whether whole or in pieces, lost or purposefully hidden in the light or the dark. Will we ever locate it, is the question. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.